Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm honored to welcome you to PeaceCon 2020, Pandemics, Peace and Justice, Shaping What Comes Next. My name is Jessica Baumgartner-Zuzik, and I'm the Senior Director for Learning and Evaluation at the Alliance for Peacebuilding. Over the past 2 days, we've explored such diverse and urgent topics as looking inward to confront racism and privilege, understanding what comes next for the Global Fragility Act, measuring success across our different program approaches, amongst many other panels addressing both challenges and highlighting opportunities for us. I'm pleased to be welcoming you to the start of the third and final day of PeaceCon 2020. Thank you all so much for joining us and being adaptive to this new digital climate that has at the same time afforded us the opportunity to open PeaceCon to our broadest and most diverse audience ever. I'd also like to recognize and thank our champion level sponsor, Humanity United, and gold level sponsors, Microsoft, the Institute for Intergroup Understanding, and the Robert Bosch Stiftung Foundation for their generous support that's made PeaceCon 2020 possible. Today, we'll look ahead to 2021 with a particular focus on U.S. peacebuilding and youth engagement. Let's be honest, 2020 has been a difficult year in more ways than one. But as peacebuilders, I've been told you never let a crisis go to waste. I've seen unity globally and within our field as we've grappled with the devastating toll COVID-19 is having on our communities and ourselves. I know I'm personally excited to see what innovation, impact, and change we can bring about in 2021 to not just get back to life as it was, but to shape a more inclusive and sustainable future for ourselves and the coming generations. To kick us off today, please join me in welcoming Dylan Matthews, the CEO of Peace Direct and Vice Chair of the Board of the Alliance for Peacebuilding.
Thank you, Jessica. Good morning, everyone, and good afternoon, and perhaps even good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to the final day of PeaceCon. As many of you may already know, AFP's Chief Executive and President Azra Zaya is stepping down from her role and will be moving on to new pastures. We are all very sad to see such a valued colleague leave us, and I'm honoured to have been asked to say a few words of appreciation to Azra for all that she has done for AFP and for the field. Azra joined AFP 2 years ago at a time when peacebuilding was already facing unprecedented challenges, from the attacks on civil society space and freedom around the world to the resurgence of great power rivalries. Like many of us, Azra felt that our sector was under-resourced and under-recognised for the role it plays in contributing to a just and peaceful world. Almost immediately, Azra set about making her mark on the organisation, the fruits of which we will continue to benefit from for years to come. Her first commitment was for greater diversity and inclusion on the board, an issue dear to her heart and mine, which we are well on the way to doing. She also led a rebrand of AFP and has worked tirelessly to reach out to new audiences and organisations who she believes should know about and care about our mission. As a result of this outreach, our membership has never been stronger. We now have 130 member organisations working in 181 countries around the world. AFP is truly a global network. Over the past 2 years, AFP's policy and advocacy work, as well as our thought leadership in the field of learning and evaluation, has reached new heights. For example, last year, AFP co-led a non-partisan coalition of 67 organisations that pushed for new legislation to tackle the causes of violence and fragility around the world. The legislation, which was signed into law in December 2019 as the Global Fragility Act, is an excellent example of what can be achieved through collective action. And AFP is proud to have played a key role. In fact, Azra's role as coalition builder, networker, and champion for our mission can be seen in many ways, including in the recently established Plus Peace Coalition, which is hosted by AFP, as well as the efforts to bridge the gap between the domestic and international peacebuilding communities. From all of us on the board of AFP, Azra, thank you so much for your leadership over the past 2 years. Your strategic vision, determination, and energy have been absolutely remarkable. It's not easy to run a small non-profit. I should remind everyone listening and watching that AFP has a staff team of less than 10 people. Yes, all of this is done with less than 10 people. And yet you've managed to get the best out of your stellar team. Azra, you will be sorely missed, but I know that we have an ally in you wherever you go. You are a true peace builder. Thank you for everything that you have done for AFP.
Thank you, Dylan, for your friendship, for your leadership, and for so much that I've been able to share with you these past 2 years. This has been truly the honor and the privilege of a lifetime, and I'm so pleased to hear you commend the work of AFP's incredible team, the small but mighty, I like to call them the titanium hub of this enormous wheel of peace builders, 30,000 strong all over the world. All of this takes the work of our network, the commitment, the determination, and the audacity. And I just want to say thank you, to the incredible AF team, to our amazing and absolutely inspiring network, and tell you all that I will carry the values of AFP and of peace building wherever I go, and will always be a friend and champion for you. Thank you so much. And now I think we're going to hand off to Peace Direct for the presentation of the 2020 Peace Direct Award.
Thank you so much, Ezra, and thank you for your continued commitment to help lift up and profile local peace builders and their amazing work around the world. I'm Bridget Moix. I'm the U.S. Executive Director for Peace Direct, and I'm thrilled to be here to announce this year's winners for the Peace Direct Awards. This is an annual competition, a global competition, to recognize and support amazing, innovative local peace builders around the world. It's our 8th year, and this year the topic, the theme for the award was, very aptly, technology and peace building, chosen before the pandemic hit, by the way. An independent jury spent months reviewing hundreds of applications from around the world and has selected one final winner, which, it is no surprise, is a youth-led organization. Before we announce the winner, I want to say a huge thank you to our sponsors for this year's Peace Direct Awards: Peace Tech Lab, Intrust IT, and Build Up. And I'd like to turn it over to them to say hello and introduce themselves. And we'll kick it over to Sheldon at Peace Tech Lab to start, and then Dave and Michaela. You're muted, Sheldon. Technology, Sheldon.
Apologies about that. Good morning, everybody. It's great to see so many old friends, and thank you, Bridget. All I want to say is a quick, huge congratulations to our winners in Sri Lanka. I'm really looking forward to hearing more about them on behalf of the Peace Tech Lab. And since our mission is to amplify the power of tech for peace building, it is easy to understand why we were so excited to be working with Peace Direct on this competition this year, on these awards, and even easier to understand why we got excited about these winners, and especially the Dream Space Academy. You guys are peace tech on steroids. So I am, again, just huge congratulations, and I am really excited to follow your work in the future and see what you come up with to inspire all of us. Thank you. Thanks again to Bridget and Peace Direct. It was a real treat to work with you on this.
Thanks, Sheldon. Dave, would you like to say hello and a word about Intrust IT?
Sure. Good morning, afternoon, or evening to all of you, wherever you are today. I'll echo Sheldon's comments. It's a great honor to be here. We appreciate the opportunity to be involved. As a judge, I was really impressed with all the submissions. I think there's some pretty innovative uses of technology out there. And as a company that helps other businesses with their IT, cybersecurity, that sort of thing, it was really cool to see these submissions and to be involved in the submission process, the judging process. Again, congratulations to everyone that submitted, and especially to the winners. And like Sheldon, I look forward to seeing what they do in the future. Thanks for having us, and thanks for the opportunity to be a sponsor.
Thanks, Dave, and thanks to Interest IT from my home state of Ohio, and for being on the jury. Michaela, part of this prize is a fabulous trip for the winners to your conference. Would you like to say a word?
Thanks, Bridget. Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here at PeaceCon and for the awards ceremony. As you might know, Build Up works on emergent challenges to peace in the digital age and emergent opportunities to transform conflict with digital technologies. So since our founding in 2014, we've accompanied 98 people from 11 countries in their journeys as peace innovators. And their work, like the work of Sagacious Youth, opens new pathways for peace and gives us very much hope for a brighter future. So on behalf of the whole Build Up team, congratulations, SYLC, on this very well-deserved award. We'll also be following you and championing you at a distance, and wish you great continued success, and very much look forward to having you at Build Peace 2021, which will be held in Cape Town. This year we were fully online, and next year we hope to have an in-person conference. So look forward to seeing you there and hearing more about your work.
Thank you so much. And now it is my huge honor and joy to introduce our awardee for this year's Peace Direct Awards. The Sagacious Youth Lead Consortium from Sri Lanka is here with us. Their founders, Aravind, Jayanthan, and Kishoth, have joined us. And the award goes to them in particular for their Dream Space Academy program. Before we hear a word from Kishoth, I want to cue the video we have to give you an idea of their incredible work in Sri Lanka.
You never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete. Embodying the quote from Buckminster Fuller, Sagacious Youth Consortium established in 2013 as a youth-led initiative to come up with novel methodologies to sustain peace and reconciliation in Sri Lanka by exploring the ways and creating platforms to bring together diverse youth groups to lead their communities in the right path through science, technology, and research. Our three key initiatives, Resilient Environmental Youth Network, RAIN, Dream Space Academy, and Reflecting Voices, are changing the narratives and perspectives towards young people in Sri Lanka. Resilient Environmental Youth Network encourages young people's interest in solving water and environmental challenges through scientific research. Since then, we have 20+ naval researchers that find alternatives for the problems faced by local communities. And this initiative made us be the national organizer for the Stockholm Junior Water Prize in Sri Lanka since 2020. Using storytelling and story mapping principles, the Reflecting Voices is to know, understand, realize, internalize, and to reflect in the form of stories from one and another community. Through social media and misinformation literacy, documentation, and storytelling training, creating a pool of young people to advocate and lobby for social justice through visual and digital literacy instead of taking violence in their hands. Dream Space Academy is our self-sustaining initiative. It's a community innovation center to tackle complex local socio-economic and environmental challenges using project and challenge-based learning. Our mission is to empower creative minds through maker education to create innovative solutions using open innovations and ultimately leading them to become successful social entrepreneurs. We envisioned a self-sustained, advanced, multidisciplinary and accessible platform for innovators to realize their dreams into reality. Therefore, Dream Space Academy was born. To tackle the social, economic, and environmental challenges, we envisioned a Dream Space Lifecycle Empowerment Program from photography to biotechnology. All our programs are focused on sustainability, which we empower the young individuals to become as social entrepreneurs. And we believe that social enterprises need to lead the community, balancing their social mission and business venture to sustain the reconciled coexistence in Sri Lanka. We are a group of motivated individuals from underprivileged communities translating our dreams into reality for sustainable development, envisioning a peace and prosperous Sri Lanka. Creativity is exploring, and the solution is you.
Congratulations to the Sagacious Youth Lead Consortium. I hope that video gave you a taste of their remarkable work and the things that they're doing, all youth-led. I want to introduce Keishath now, who's just going to say a few words about their work. And Keishath, it's been such a challenging year, so much happening in the world, in Sri Lanka, I know. Can you just tell us a little bit about your plans now for 2021? And in particular, how do you keep hope and stay inspired with the work that you're doing?
Yeah, thank you, Bridget. And first of all, thank you, the entire Peace Direct team, the jury, the panel of jury, the PeaceCon team, the Alliance for Peacebuilding, and the sponsors. It's a great honor and pleasure for us to receive the Peace Direct Award for 2020. And yeah, we believe it's a boost for our hard work that we're doing for the past several years. And yeah, of course, though the 2020 has been a hurdle for everyone globally, SYLC and Dream Space Academy adapting to the new normal through our community innovations. So what we're trying to do in 2021 is extending our space, because so now we are our activity is kind of limited because we are in a small space, and so most of our makers and the youth group that we are working on is a bit huge. So we are planning to build an eco village, a digital naturalism campus, so that we can open the platforms for a very diverse group of young people around Sri Lanka. So this is one of our very big hope that we are looking forward in the year 2021, as well as we believe, as I shared in the video, so we believe in community businesses which tackles the socio-economic and environmental challenges. So we want to enhance and we want to empower many creative minds to become social entrepreneurs, to take care of their own community. So there will be more varieties of startups in Sri Lanka, tackling their own social problems. So social enterprises, community businesses leads their own community through a sustaining approach, through novel methodologies to tackle the challenges that they're facing in day-to-day life. As well as, we have several labs at Dream Space Academy, and we want to extend our labs to Space Lab, Nano Lab, Fabrics Lab, and to several variety of labs, because we don't want to limit ourselves with the existing labs. So we want to open the platform for policy lab and gender and diversity inclusion, because so we have many makers from differently able, as well as so it is a huge challenge being in a global south, especially. So we have a typical traditional culture and social obstacles to engage many young people in our program. So that the 2021 we are looking with much hope and excitement, to empower our people to come up with most of the community innovations, as well as how we are hoping, during these challenges and the things is really our makers, because experiencing the 3 decades of war, so before healing the wounded memories that we had, so we witnessed three incidents, like the Candy Digan incident, Sunday Easter attack, and the current coronavirus, which affected our growing movement. So when we grow, we suddenly pushed down, so that So these are the makers who like really showed interest even during the COVID-19. So they were coming and 3D printing the masks and like supporting the forces and the people who are like facing, like economical struggles as well as the safety struggles during the pandemic situation. So they are the boost for us to move forward. And the community innovations that comes, from our empowerment program and which solves the problems and becomes a self-sustaining models are our boost. So far, like we are with 4 community businesses, which are like tackling the local problems from photography to biotechnology. So these are the boost. And yeah, so like it makes us to drive our life journey towards a reconciled, peaceful and prosperous Sri Lanka. And I take this stage to thank our partners, especially CPBR, Center for Peacebuilding and Reconciliation, Mr. Shani Jayavira and Professor Jayanta Senaviratne, as well as OpenAge UK, Sari Bater, as well as Romerel from like she's an independent peace building consultant as well as a peace builder. So these people are our backbones who are, in our hard times, like pushing us, motivating us, empowering us, and our makers, colleagues, and the Peace Direct and the jury, the panel of jury, the PeaceCon, the Alliance for Peace Building. So yeah, thank you very much. And so thanks, it's really a great boost for us, this award, because we were actually down because of COVID-19. We were trying to go like move forward, and yeah, so like very young people, right? So even like, so we are like in our early like 20s, and even the makers working with us like very teens, so they were actually like kind of exhausted. But now this is really a boost, and thank you very much for everyone being with our journey and supporting us, nurturing us, and we are like with so much excitement, we are looking for 2021. Thank you, everyone.
Oh, thank you so much. And thank you for that inspiration to us as well. We really are so thankful and for the work that you're doing, and so happy. The award includes a $10,000 cash prize for you to do the work you want to do and that your communities need. So we're so happy to be able to support you in it. We'd love to talk more with everyone here from Sagacious Youth Lead Consortium, but we don't have time. There's more program to come. Please do join us at the Peace Direct virtual booth at the 10:45 break. If you'd like to meet Keishoth, Jayanthan, and Aravinth, I've been practicing their names, and Aravinth, we'd love to have conversation. They'd really like to hear your questions and to connect more with you all. Thanks again to AFP, to our sponsors, and congratulations.
Great. Thank you so much, Bridget and Peace Direct. Please allow me to extend on behalf of myself and the Alliance for Peacebuilding, congratulations to our Peace Direct Award recipients, SYLC, a true inspiration for all of us. I'm pleased to introduce next Lisa Schurch, who's the Research Director for the Toda Institute and Senior Fellow for Policy at the Alliance for Peacebuilding. She'll be sharing with us some of the finalists from the AFP co-sponsored Digital Peace Factory contest.
Hi, my name is Lisa Shirk, and I'm going to give a flash talk on the Digital Peace Factory, which is a competition to create digital peacebuilding content, including memes, GIFs, and videos. This fall, we invited a variety of peacebuilders across the United States to submit memes to mobilize and empower people to be change agents in polarized online spaces with fun, funny, colorful, and inspiring new digital content. This is an example of one of the contestants' entries to the Digital Peace Factory. We worked with a partnership of a variety of different peacebuilding groups that are experimenting with digital peacebuilding. I work for the Toda Peace Institute and the Alliance for Peacebuilding, and I worked with Search for Common Ground, the Center for Justice and Peacebuilding, New Gen Peacebuilders, the Listening Campaign, Build Up, and the Plus Peace Coalition. We know that social media is impacting divisions in the United States, and memes and GIFs on social media often further polarize. Last summer, the U.S. Senate Foreign Relations Committee released a report that found Russia used social media, and in particular used memes, to intensify and increase polarization in the U.S. and in an attempt to undermine the U.S. election. This is another example of one of the memes one of our contestants entered this fall. Peacebuilders created memes to depolarize U.S. politics and to emphasize kindness, empathy, and building bridges across political divisions. This is another meme that was entered. We reached thousands of people in October and November during the U.S. election season with this sort of advice and guidance and encouragement to try to find respectful political discourse online. This was another entry into our contest. Memes offered a variety of kinds of key messages, skills, and stories of social justice and peace building. These were tips for talking to your family and friends over Thanksgiving, whether by Zoom or in person, to talk about, how do you talk about politics in this kind of politicized context? How do you really listen to the experiences that shape other people's beliefs? And how do you try to find common ground and shared values during this election season? Memes also address the growing trend on the left of denouncing dialogue and listening as too soft or politically ineffective. So for example, Professor Loretta J. Ross had given this wonderful article about calling in as an alternative to calling out. Calling in is calling out in private, involving compassion and context, whereas calling out is about publicly shaming another person. Some of the memes that were entered into the contest really captured the essence of the tension on social media between advocating for social justice on one hand and avoiding social polarization. Thousands of people engaged with the content. They saw it, they liked it, they shared it, or they commented on it, so that it was trying to spread it around. The next steps for this Digital Peace Factory contest, we're going to invite you, the audience, to help us by taking a quick survey distributed by the Alliance for Peacebuilding in their upcoming newsletter, as well as on our Facebook and Instagram and Twitter pages. So take the quick survey to vote on your favorite meme and to give us your guidance on the future of the Digital Peace Factory. We really want to know how we can make this idea go further. If you'd like to partner with us, let us know if you'd like a webinar on how to make memes and GIFs. And join our Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp pages so you can see more of our digital peace building content. We hope to hear from all of you. Thank you. Bye.
3, 2.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Lisa and Toda Peace Institute for sharing with us the Digital Peace Factory Award. And thank you to Bridget and the Peace Direct team for selecting such an amazing and youth-led winner for the Peace Direct Awards, Sagacious Youth Lead Consortium. Congratulations to Keisha and your full team. It's so wonderful to showcase you here today at PeaceCon. I am now going to transition us into today's plenary topic and discussion on youth, peace, and security. My name is Megan Schleicher, and I am AFP's Senior Associate for Policy and Communications. AFP co-leads the U.S. YPS Coalition alongside our partner Search for Common Ground to support the YPS Act in Congress and the YPS agenda globally. This plenary also serves as the finale to the Coalition's #YesForYPS webinar series that started August 12th on International Youth Day to raise awareness of the YPS movement and highlight new and prominent voices in YPS. We are incredibly honored to be here today and to be joined by not only amazing youth peace builders, but also the Congresswomen who have been championing this act, Representative Meng and Representative Brooks. I also want to take a quick moment to thank and honor Representatives Phillips, Curtis, and Troon for their part in sponsoring this incredibly important piece of legislation. To start us off, I'll give a quick introduction of U.S. Congresswoman Grace Meng. She is serving her fourth term in the U.S. House of Representatives for New York's 6th District. She is the first and only Asian American member of Congress from New York State, and she is a member of the House Appropriations Committee and its subcommittees on state and foreign operations, Homeland Security, and Commerce, Justice, Science, and related agencies. And she also sits on the House Ethics Committee. I'll turn it over now to Representative Meng to share some remarks on the YPS Act and her role.
Good morning, everyone. For the introduction. I'm so honored to be here with all of you, and I just really want to thank you all for having me. It's an honor to be here with my colleague Congresswoman Susan Brooks as well. And I wish we could all be together physically, but the benefit of this conference, doing it virtually, is that we're able to get together with so many more people from around the world. To my friend, Congresswoman Susan Brooks, Susan, we were congressional classmates. I have loved working with you on various issues, especially the YPS Act and so many other important foreign policy bills, as we work together to fight to lift up the voices of those who are often too often marginalized. We came to Congress in the same year, and our friendship and partnership has been invaluable. We even ended up on the same floor in the same building this year. If it's appropriate, it is appropriate that today, on the final day of PeaceCon, the focus is on young peace builders. There are more young people in the world than ever before, at 1.8 billion. This generation of young leaders are connected to each other like never before. In the US, young people have long transformed the social justice narrative of our country. From the calls to end the Vietnam War to the March for Our Lives call to end gun violence, from Black Lives Matter to climate action, these young people are beacons of moral clarity as they hold their governments accountable. And peaceful protest movements like End SARS ignite sparks that transcend borders and are bolstered by social media. Yet, even as movements of young people across the world have been overwhelmingly and disproportionately peaceful, governments still view young people as a problem to solve, as potential gang members and terrorists. But if we look around, young people are not the problem, they are the solution. Youth peace builders are risking their lives to solve the problems that have stymied older generations. That's why I introduced a constitutional amendment to lower the voting age in America from 18 to 16 years old. Our vote is our voice, and young people deserve a voice in our elections, which will impact generations. By creating unlikely partnerships and clearly and articulately delivering their priorities on a global stage, these young people are making the older generations listen. This is true at home as much as it is abroad. My youngest constituents, many of whom are not yet old enough to vote, have advised me on issues that are impacting them every day. For example, as some of you may know, I've worked for years on this issue of menstrual equity. This issue was something that I truly never thought of as a person who grew up in a middle-class family, was brought to me by a teenager who had experienced homelessness in Queens. Her story sparked a movement, and it inspired me and my team to champion legislation to allow more access to menstrual products, both in the US and in our development assistance. Similarly, it has been young peace builders themselves who have educated me on the critical need for the youth peace and security agenda. Over the past decade, there has been a critical effort to prove that inclusive peace processes are longer lasting and more effective. The Women, Peace, and Security movement has provided data for what so many of us have known is true, that when women are at the table, peace agreements are longer lasting and more effective. We must continue to work towards building more inclusive peace building. Young people too are fighting for a seat at this table. And are the challenges the same? Yes and no. Issues of inclusion and diversity remain front and center. They too seek protection as human rights defenders. They seek respect from the establishment. But there are also issues that are unique to youth-led organizations. They are smaller, more nimble, and have quicker leadership transitions as members age out. Some of the basic ways they are structured keep them out of the US grant-making and contracting systems. This is some of what we aim to tackle in the YPS Act. This bill, which is the first bill introduced in a national parliament based on UNSCR 2250, seeks to ensure that the U.S. promotes the inclusive and meaningful participation of youth in mediation and negotiation processes that prevent, mitigate, or resolve conflicts overseas. The YPS Act would establish a youth coordinator at USAID, as well as a youth point of contact in relevant bureaus, integrate youth consultation into program design, and provide financial and technical assistance to youth-led initiatives in pursuit of conflict resolution and peace building. The YPS Act is a once-in-a-generation shift in U.S. foreign policy that would bring youth voices to the table in conflicts around the world. In countries facing conflict, it will be young people who will bear the burden of sustaining peace over generations, leading their society from reconciliation to prosperity, and there can be no about them without them. I am thrilled to be here today with leaders in this effort to hear from them directly about their important work. Thank you, and I'm excited for today's conversation.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman Meng, for sharing your remarks and story. I want to now introduce U.S. Congresswoman Susan Brooks, who represents the 5th District of Indiana. Congresswoman Brooks is retiring this year after serving in the House since 2012, as well as other government service positions, and we will surely miss her as a champion for youth. She is leaving an incredibly valuable legacy with her work on areas such as mental health and homeland security, in addition to YPS. And I'm now turning it over to Congresswoman Brooks.
Good morning, Megan, and good morning. Thank you to the Alliance, and thank you so very much to my dear friend and colleague, Representative Grace Meng. As you've just heard, we came in together into Congress back in 2013, and I've so admired her leadership on behalf particularly of young people. She's a brilliant young lawyer and a young mom, and she's my neighbor across the hall in the United States Capitol. And I've missed seeing you since COVID hit, Grace. And so thank you, and hello to all of the young people around the globe and everyone who is supporting the movement. It's great to be able to speak with you today on this important topic, engaging our youth. As Representative Meng mentioned, the Youth, Peace, and Security Act will transform U.S. foreign policy by adapting our foreign policy to an age of emergent youth power. It's this sort of youth engagement we so desperately need more of, whether it's in post-conflict zones or other international and democracy building initiatives. We need to hear youth voices. Too often, policymakers like ourselves get stuck in our old ways and fail to hear fresh voices bringing fresh new ideas. Youth are the best and often the only way to get those fresh perspectives, not only in the United States House, but in parliamentary organizations and institutions all around the globe. It's often said that today's problems will be inherited by today's youth. And that's true, which is why we must design policies and solutions that include youth perspectives, not only so that we can get those fresh ideas, but so that we can build youth engagement early. By getting youth engaged in the peace and democracy building efforts, we can build deeper engagement with the communities and individuals most affected. Now, the internet age of which we are all a part of, and my internet is a little unstable. I'm getting those signals right now, so if I lose you, that's why. But as we know that the internet age has reminded us all that the most effective way to connect young people is through other young people. And by engaging them at all points in the peace building process and asking young people to get engaged, we ensure they're invested in the solution, which will ensure its sustainability. So during my 8 years in Congress, and yes, I'm about ready to wrap up, I gave my farewell speech last night on the House floor. It's the young people from my home state, and I mentioned the young people in my home state who brought fresh thoughts and ideas to my staff and myself. And keep in mind that when you talk with elected officials, their staffs are critically important. So engaging the staff is like engaging us. The young people's ideas would help me be more involved in our communities and promote a more peaceful state and nation for sure. The enthusiasm of the young people I interacted with motivated me to start what I called a youth advisory group in my very first term. And I would encourage you to encourage other elected officials to have youth advisory groups. This group's consisted of kids from middle school all the way through high school from my 5th congressional district, which is Central Indiana. And those young people who had a strong interest in public policy or politics in the legislative process. And these student members would come together and periodically meet with me to share their views and opinions on issues of importance to them and to our country. We held in our discussions, we held discussions on the issues of homelessness, on climate change, on the vaping epidemic in our country, on matters of homeland security, on our national debt, on improving school security, and so many more topics. And I truly believe it's a great way to engage young people to become engaged with their government, to be active thinkers, to contribute to the valuable discussions in their communities. And I will say they were not all from my party. I welcomed all. I wanted to hear everyone's perspectives. And once they figured out that when those issues, that how they directly affected them, they wanted to learn more and work towards solutions. The students were often able to converse with stakeholders and leaders I would bring in to talk with them about the policymaking and learn from the experts. But then often the students shared their perspectives with the experts I brought in. And so the experts learned from them, and we certainly learned a lot. With all the political division we're experiencing in our own country and across the globe, and the troubling trends of increasing violence in our communities, it is up to the younger generation to unite and promotes peace and civility. And if there's one thing that I think the youth need to lead on, it's peace and civility. One of my roles has involved recruiting more women to run for office here in the United States House, especially young women who can bring a different perspective to policymaking decisions, because we have to have all of these perspectives at the table as we are crafting legislation. And so trying to encourage young women, which I've done for a long time, to consider serving in local government, state government, or at the federal level is one way for our younger generation to get involved. And we are seeing that all across the country. We realize that when we can get people engaged, and it may even start with student councils, student government, then on to neighborhood organizations, then to local, state, and/or federal positions and international positions. This is how they're going to make a difference. So we know that young people in youth-led movements can and do play vital roles in the de-escalation of conflict. We also know that the youth population is underrepresented in peace building and conflict prevention. These are priorities for foreign policymakers, especially like Grace Meng and the other colleagues that have joined on this bill, and trying to encourage our government, our agencies, and those around the globe to have youth have a seat at the table will only serve to advance peace. So thank you again for having me here today. Thanks to the Alliance for Peace Building for your commitment in working with, I understand, over 181 countries to end violent conflict and sustain peace. I can't think of a better way to go out in retirement than knowing and contributing, and I want to continue to be a voice for young people around the globe long after I leave the halls of Congress. So thank you for allowing me to participate. I look forward to the conversation.
Huge thank you to both Congresswomen for their remarks and championship of youth voices and the youth peace and security agenda. It's so wonderful to hear from both of you. And thanks for giving our audience, a much better dive into the legislation itself and the work that both of your offices have done to promote youth, to promote youth perspectives and bring them to the table and to give them a seat. On today, the 5th anniversary of UNSCR 2250 on youth peace and security, we are delighted to host this conversation between the Congresswomen and youth peace builders from different parts of the globe. So before getting into our discussion this morning, I want to quickly introduce you all to our youth peace builders who work on youth peace and security every day in their lives. First, we have Alwell Akibe, and he is the Research Director for Building Blocks for Peace Foundation, a youth-led organization working around issues of conflict prevention, peace building, and countering violent extremism in Nigeria. He is also actively shaping the implementation of the YPS agenda internationally as a member of the African Youth Advocacy Team and the Communications Working Group of the Global Coalition on YPS. Fariala Nassim is a youth peace builder in Yemen. She has experience leading several youth and cultural initiatives while in university, as well as working with the local civil society organization Afak Shabiba Foundation, where she managed humanitarian and community development programs, as well as built networks to advocate for women's participation in peace. And finally, we have Thomas Fufaro, a young peace builder from Argentina with many years' experience in peace education. He currently serves as the chair of the International Steering Group for the United Network of Young Peacebuilders and is their regional representative for the Americas. So before I open the floor, I want to kick us off by asking a question to each of our youth peacebuilders, and then I will turn it over to Congresswoman Meng to ask her first question. So how might the YPS Act create tangible change in the work you are doing every day? Oh, well, we can start with you, and then we'll go over to Ferial, then Tomas.
Hi, Megan. Thank you so much for having me. I don't know if you can hear me very clearly.
I just asked how will the YPS Act create tangible change in the work you are doing every day?
Thank you. So with the building blocks of this foundation in Nigeria, we're working in local communities to counter violent extremism, build peace, and then ensure conflict prevention. The YPS Act is also a very good initiative, just like the other instruments that we have had of recent, such as the UN Security Council Resolution 2250, 2219, and 2535. It's very important to my context in Nigeria and Africa because, most importantly, because it will challenge the negative stereotype that still persists of young people in Africa as perpetrators of violence rather than agents of peace. My organization has worked really closely over the last 3 years in local communities across the north and south of the country. We've also collaborated with other youth-led organizations working around climate change, gender empowerment, sustainable livelihoods, to really see how we can make a change and work in this local context to build peace and counter violence. But up till now, we're still not receiving as much support as we need from policymakers, from local CSOs, and also from a number of international non-governmental organizations. I see this as a result of the fact that there's that negative cultural stereotype that also abounds in our context in Africa, where young people are considered to be naive, they're considered to be inexperienced, despite the fact that they have been able to bring a lot of impact to the table. So just this today, we launched a Connecting and Amplifying Voices of Young People Building Peace in Nigeria book at our Nigeria Youth for Peace Forum that ended about an hour ago. And this was just a documentary of the impact of 17 youth-led organizations, from organizations that are women-led to youth-led, that are also working in this local context across different sectors to push change and drive impact in these local communities. But then we don't get so much support, we don't get so much partnership support from people in our local context because of these challenging negative stereotypes. Secondly, I think the YPS Act will be helpful in creating opportunities for capacity building. So in as much as young people are doing the very best that they can according to their abilities and based on their passion, we still recognize the fact that we need to build up our capacities in best practices in program management and also including partnerships and stakeholder engagements. So with the YPS Act that mandates that bureaus around the world like USAID and their programs in foreign policy, there's the focus on youth-led organizations on providing technical assistance to them. I think it will trickle down to organizations here in Nigeria and in Africa and really help to provide that technical capacity we need to launch much more impact in these local communities. Finally, I think the YPS Act will lead to creation of youth-sensitive funding. So in this book that we launched today, we found out that most organizations in Nigeria are running on an annual budget of less than $3,000 and yet they are providing peace education campaigns. They are providing peace education in schools in rural communities. They are using technologies to counter fake news around COVID-19. Yet they are providing psychosocial support to refugees and internally displaced persons. They are also using sports to connect people in the northeastern part of the country and to counter violent extremism. With so much little resources, young people here in my context in Nigeria and also in Africa are making so much change. But unfortunately, the funding system is not tailored towards empowering young people, because young people usually, those organizations usually do not have those expertise in terms of long duration of establishment or a long track record of accomplishment to get the funding from USAID, from the US state government, and other big international donor agencies. So I think the emphasis, I want to thank Congresswomen Susan Brooks and Grace Meng, the the emphasis on saying that provide youth coordinator in the USAID offices, and also ensuring that we get the capacity and the funding is tailored towards the needs and capacities of youth-led organizations. We provide this very important funding that we need to make much more impact. Thank you.
Ariel, over to you.
Yes, I don't know if you got me clearly, Megan.
Thank you, Megan. Good evening, everyone, in my time, and thank you for this opportunity. I think before adoption of United Nations Resolution 2250 in 2015, young people's positive contribution went unseen and overlooked. There was a tendency to perceive young people as a troublemakers and as a problem that needs to be tackled. So I didn't mirror how much young men and young women would support developmental and sustainability in their communities. Since by the end of the day of prevalent negative stereotyping is what would be said, but the YBS agenda adopted and globally endorsed. Now young people have a global recognition of pivotal role they plan in building peace, and in resolving conflict in their communities. What also makes the YBS agenda is so impactful in our daily work is that is provided as with the guideline framework we needed to design, plan, or prioritize our intervention. Also, it helps us to understanding as a peace builders where there we need to gather voices to advocate for participation, or to start with the advocating and with working on the protection of children and youth from recruitment or exploitation by warring parties, or for any of the other thematic pillars of resolution. So the YBS agenda is our framework that we are gathering all youth voices around in our context, in order to have our voices heard, and in order to take a part in partners and decision makers when it comes peace process and conflict resolution. Thank you.
Sure, Jessica. So, okay, cool. So, hello everyone, good morning. First of all, it's a great honor to be here with these amazing young peace builders and of course, Congresswoman Brooks and Meng. So for answering the question, I believe that legislation in general is a key first step. Bills like this bill and international resolutions like 2250, they help frame and they give legitimacy to an agenda, which in this case will be the YPS agenda. In this case in particularly, I believe this act, it's really important because whether we like it or not, the US is a key actor in the international community, and it has a great amount of influence on the peace and security, and international peace and security across the world. So having an act like this, even though it's a local or national, actually, a national act, will have a huge impact abroad. And lastly, the final thing I'd like to say about this is that, as I said before, I believe legislation is a key first step, but of course, then there are many others. And it's really important to, once these milestones are achieved, so for example, with resolution 2250 and so on, it's important to work and build on that and make sure that everything that is said on the bills, which usually are very nice words, it comes to life in action and is translated to resourcing young peace builders and protecting young peace builders. Thank you.
Megan, do I go next?
Yes, that would be great.
Okay. So I had a question for our amazing peace builders. Just wanted to, and thank you for sharing your perspective and experience. In your work, are you experiencing any physical or digital threats? And how are you and your peers navigating these types of threats? And what can our international community do to support youth who are threatened for their peace work?
Okay, I think I go next. This is a great question, and thank you for asking it. In my case in particular, I'm from Argentina, and luckily I live in a country where physical threat to young peace builders is not a reality. But as I said, as Megan introduced me, I'm representing the Americas as a continent in why, and we've experienced some severe cases of physical and structural violence to young peace builders in Colombia, in Brazil, and in Haiti, and those are the three main countries. But of course, there are other cases as well. So this is definitely a threat that many young peace builders are experiencing in the Americas, and I'm sure that in the rest of the world as well. So what can the international community do to support this? I think and this is a question I've been asked before, and I think that one of the main answers is making sure to keep governments accountable of their citizens and their young their young population in general. So in the Americas, at least, the source of the threats in many cases, and not all of them, of course, but in many cases, comes directly from the governments, comes from the police force, comes from law enforcement, and this is something that just cannot keep happening, and the international community has to put pressure on the governments to make sure they're accountable for their actions, because they are the one in charge of law enforcement, so they should be accountable with young people.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman Meng, for that question. Indeed, youth peace builders in Nigeria and in Africa are facing serious physical and digital threats to their security. So, in fact, today the Nigeria Youth Forum, we just concluded the topic was on young people's protection in Nigeria as important for peace and security. And serious physical threats are being faced by young peace builders. So I'm speaking for Peace Foundation. But besides that, I'm part of a coalition, the Nigeria Coalition for Youth Peace and Security, where we have about 55 youth-led organizations represented there that's really working to promote peace in these local communities. One of the major threats that we are facing is physical threats to our life and security. So currently, there are quite a number of violent conflicts across the country, from the Boko Haram insurgency to farmer-header clashes, to autism, and then to banditry and kidnapping. A number of my colleagues have actually, who are working in northeastern Nigeria, have actually been kidnapped while working in local communities. So they had to pay ransoms to be freed. They were not freed by the security forces. So they actually have, these are people that are working with very limited resources. So they have to really overburden their family and friends and well-wishers to actually raise the ransoms for their work. This is very sad and depressing, because these are young people that have taken it upon themselves to make a change in their communities, and yet they are facing serious physical threats. So this has really intensified after the NSAS protest, where young people in Nigeria were just emphasizing that they wanted to Megan, can you hear me clearly? Great. So after the NSAS protest, a lot of regulations have been in place. So for a couple of months recently, the government has been putting talks towards the promotion of a social media bill, where they will regulate the content of social media users, which often are young people that are just really trying to hold the government accountable. So there's been a lot of talk around that and progress towards it. Also, at the end of the NSAS protest, there were efforts actually allegedly that the government was going to shut down the social media space just to prevent young people from actually speaking out and organizing to simply fight for their lives, for their security to exist in their country. Then also there has also been a lot of emphasis by the government and then other policymakers on the so-called fake news and hate speech that is also available that is tagged to social media. So these are like really spaces that are being really closing for young peace builders, because most of us, thanks to the COVID-19 pandemic, we're having to really organize over social media. So, but there are a lot of those closure, those spaces getting closed as a result of suppression by the authorities here. Violence here, the fact that young people are systematically excluded from decision-making processes, they are unable to get a seat at the table. So, in as much as there are so many violent conflicts that are ongoing, you can't still see young people involved in driving the change that are needed in those places. In terms of navigating the stress, what my organization and other colleagues have been able to do is really come together and build a coalition. So we discovered that we need for us to make sustainable impact and to prevent, to ensure that we're able to harness our capabilities and actually make sustainable change. We needed to work together. We needed to cooperate with each other and not compete. So what we did was create the National Coalition on the Nigerian Coalition on Youth Peace and Security in December last year, where we come together to present a unified voice to any conflict issue. So early this year, during the COVID-19 pandemic, we really raised the emphasis on the fact that there are increased rates of gender-based violence as an effect of the lockdown processes. Then we also presented a strong voice during the EndSARS protest, really emphasizing that young people deserve to be heard and their demands should be addressed. So one way in which we navigate this stress is by showing our impartiality in local conflicts. So to avoid being targeted by local communities or by authorities, we let them know that, hey, we're just intervening in this conflict because we want to give you a way for you to move forward. We want to find a collaborative approach to resolving the conflict. In terms of the international community, what I want from the international community to help us mitigate these threats is a lot of advocacy bilateral and multilateral engagements with African governments. So there's a lot of leverage that the United States and the European Union and then other big international NGOs have on African governments. So through those bilateral means and also through multilateral engagements, emphasize the fact that young people need to be given a space, they need to be mainstreamed into the peace building architecture and the government. So through those bilateral, in terms of giving of foreign aid, in terms of engagements and then other forms of partnerships, it should be emphasized that young people's protection cannot be, young people's protection is inevitable. It's not something that can be swept under the carpet. We need to be protected to do so much more that we know we are capable of.
Thank you. First, I want to say that the nature of working in Yemen, especially as a peace builders, is complicated, challenging, and extremely difficult. 6 years of ongoing war and in one of the poorest Arab countries has not only led to making Yemen suffer from worse humanitarian crises in the world, but also to be concerning and voiceable, putting peace builders, journalists, also human rights defenders in a murky situation. As a peace builders and human rights defenders or journalists, you put yourself at the dangers for saying a word or statement that makes the non-state actors, and they are now so many injury. For example, in the north of Yemen, the word peace is prohibited by the de facto authorities there, and any civil society organization use this word if even in the mentioned in the banner of project, it will be exposed to be shut down and peace builders to detention and kidnapping because of these politicization and criminalization of peace building. Almost 90% of the peace building project there has been suspended. Now, in the south of Yemen, in Aden and surrounding governorates, the situation is getting worse and worse, unfortunately. There is a number of activists who has been attacked or kidnapped or criticizing because of posting on social media their resentment of depressed situation in Aden. We are still, however, do some work of activities like capacity building, some workshop, some training or online advocacy campaign also. But this space is shrinking by as well as we are now required to go over and very long process for scanning and responded to many demands before obtaining the approval of organize a workshop or any activity. But despite all these threats and risks, we are, as a young peace builders, have a key strength that keep our work and efforts going on. We are always ready to adopt our work or our efforts for again and again responding to the changing environmentals. Also, if we can do it, our activity physically presence, we do them remotely through the digital space. If we couldn't run advocacy campaign on the street, we can do these through the social media platforms. We make a great use for the digital technology to reconnect and also to reshape our access strategy, so that we help as a peace builders, and also as responded to the humanitarian crisis. Therefore, what we hope from the international community will do is to have a real pressure on the parties of the conflict. And let's face it, the conflict in Yemen is not purely local driven, but rather it is internationalized conflict with the local actors, surface foreign actors, realize their own agendas at the extensive of Yemenis. So the international community should collaborate and partner to find the concrete solution to address cyberbullying and digital waves of bots and trolls treating people's lives. Thank you.
I actually have now questions for both Congresswomen, and that is, why did you decide to work on and introduce a bill on youth peace security? And maybe Congresswoman Meng, if you want to start, that would be great.
Sure. Thank you for the question. Look, we all know that young people are going to continue to bear the burdens of peace and conflict. Young people are the generation that is most impacted by the political decision of elites and our governments. But yet they aren't given the space or oftentimes the respect to participate in designing their own future. And this is particularly true in regions facing protracted conflict. I've met so many brave young men and women who are committed to making hard choices and compromises that are necessary to end conflict. And they're coming up with innovative solutions that could break through these entrenched interests. but too often the only investments their government makes in them is violence prevention. So when we talk about young people, we talk about the youth bulge, the lack of opportunity, the threat that they pose. But if we start treating young people as resources, as future leaders, we can work with them to create new opportunities. When I started to think about how to integrate the voices of young people into US foreign policy, the Youth, Peace, and Security agenda felt like the best place to start. The primary goal is to give young leaders a say in their own future. I was proud to work with Susan Brooks to introduce this bill, but equally proud to have worked with people literally whose lives will be directly impacted.
Thank you, Grace. And it's been my honor truly to be your partner. And I hope that the type of work we're doing together on this bipartisan bill can be a model for future Congresses and for other legislatures around the globe. Just thank you so much for your leadership, Grace. I think that so when you're friends, when you develop friendships, particularly with people from other political parties, and maybe we don't agree on everything, but we have so much more in common than we don't. And when Grace when Grace asked me to co-lead this very important bill, of course I did when I learned about it, and she is my friend. And friendships and relationships among legislators and among policymakers are very, very important. And so I didn't want to disappoint my friend. And when we maybe had changes as we were working through the legislation, we listened to each other, and our staffs talked and tried to get it right so that it could be a bill that we could move forward. And that's how really difficult legislation and difficult issues pass. But I have to tell you, this wasn't that difficult to me, whether because I very much believe in bringing diverse voices to the table to finding the solution, whether it was the women in Afghanistan that I have visited with on Representative Roby and Susan Davis's trip. Women in Congress go together to Afghanistan each year to thank our women troops, but we've built amazing relationships with the Afghan women, and we have encouraged them to be intimately involved in the peace building process in their country. But similarly, I traveled with members of Congress to Guatemala and talked with the youth to learn about the gang violence in Guatemala and why so many youth of Guatemala and other countries are migrating to the United States, and to try to help them find those solutions so they can build opportunity in their own countries. And the youth of Guatemala had amazing ideas, and they were getting involved. And so I have seen from my travel how critically important it is that we engage youth. That similarly, I was lucky enough to go to Tanzania many years ago on a bipartisan trip once again, and saw and learned so much more about the youth bulge, particularly on the continent of Africa. And we must continue to educate other Americans and others around the world. And this type of legislation, I think, does that. And so that's why I decided to help lead this. And now it's incumbent upon me and my other colleagues on this bill, because this Congress is closing, so it will have to be introduced again in the next Congress. That's how it works here. So come January 3rd, this bill will need to be reintroduced again. And so we'll need to find good partners and build those partnerships for Grace so that she can get this across the finish line and send a loud message to the world that this is important to us. Maybe I should ask, speaking of different crisis, and we are now in the crisis of our century with this COVID pandemic all around the globe. and it's just been horrible. But youth have been critical to mitigating the Ebola crisis, the AIDS epidemic, and other health crises. And now youth are so important in the fight against COVID-19. So I'm curious from all of you and in your countries, how has COVID-19 impacted your peace building work? And what are young people doing to mitigate the virus in your own communities and countries? Because we do believe that youth, again, are the answer, but we also, particularly when you're older, I'm a bit more of a senior citizen than my friend Grace Meng. Seniors are very worried about youth not really taking the virus seriously and maybe spreading the virus. What are youth doing in order to fight COVID-19 in your countries, and how is it impacting your peace building efforts? And I'd love for each of you, maybe for all, maybe you could go first.
Yes, thank you. The impact of COVID-19 on peace building project was unfortunately very significant, as there was a complete closure or suspension for activities, and best times there was inevitable change in the strategy of implementation our project, let alone facing the threat that some grants and funds maybe go and cut and suspended by the youth. Were more flexible, but the youth were more flexible and creative. So we had to adopt our activities in the way that we have implemented them through the digital space. For example, in Afaq Shababia Foundation, we had a study that identifying the needs of priorities of young people in the governorate of Eden, and it was supposed to be published on May, but due to the COVID-19 pandemic surrounding us, we couldn't collect our data from the field. So we had to move all our project into the digital space. We had to train our responded first on how to use digital platforms like Zoom and Google Meet, and then we started to conduct online focus group discussion and the interviews, and a way other civil society organization started to regulate them activities in the way that helps them to continue their capacity building and their environmental activities. To answer about the second part of my question, it is important first to be noted that unfortunately the COVID-19 reached the peak it coincided with our presence of flash floods and heavy rains that caused huge damage, 100 of houses, and brought devastation to infrastructure in Eden, and caused the spread of severe infections, disease such as malaria, cholera, and in addition to COVID-19. So in such critical situation, we found ourselves at the forefront to respond to multiple challenges. You would find young people take activist parts in raising awareness of people on the importance to taking prevention measures against the COVID-19, especially because most of them dealt with the pandemic as a matter of misinformation or disinformation designed by the Western media, or because most people cannot stay at home because they will not be able to provide food for them families. Therefore, the response of the priorities of the health problems was greater through awareness campaigns on the social media and through conducted field campaigns and face masks. Even when most of the hospitals and medical care facilities closed their doors due to the lack of capacity to receive the patients, the youth established volunteer youth initiatives to work and provided the medicine and the health care and the health service to the home. And another initiative is established to distribute the food to help these families. That's what makes us very proud of the youth Yemenis, whose role has been the main factor in the positive response to COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Tomas, this is going very quickly. Can you please share with us how COVID is impacting your efforts?
Absolutely. So, of course, as many will know, the main impact is that all of our activities have to go online, and that of course is a challenge and has percent a decrease on the effectiveness of some of our activities. However, I think this has also been a great opportunity for peace building in general. So, for example, having this plenary, it wouldn't be possible having two congresswomen from the U.S. with young peace builders from Yemen, Nigeria, and Argentina, talking so directly in the past, and I think this this is a great opportunity, and this is something that we have to keep using in the future, because even if COVID ends tomorrow, there's still going to be some physical barriers and traveling barriers that prevent young peace builders from different countries not being able to attend these high level meetings and going to the UN and all of that. So I think this is a very interesting alternative, and I think it's important to look the positive side of this crisis, which of course has been very damaging. But it has also brought very interesting opportunities like this one. So yeah, for keeping it short, that's my answer.
Thank you, Tomas. And Alwell, can you quickly share?
Thank you so much, Congresswoman Brooks. Yes, indeed, COVID has had a phenomenal impact on our work. So because of the lockdowns that ensued, we were unable to have physical activities for a long period of time up until the lockdown was lifted later in the year. But even till now, we have instead decided to pivot to digital peace building. So what we saw also, just like Thomas said, is we saw an opportunity for us to be able to quickly see how we can reach a lot more people beyond the narrow scope of working in those local communities. We decided to start to ramp up our use of social media for peace building, really passing out messages, debunking COVID-19 myths on social media, and also trying to see how we can host events using Facebook Live and then other platforms. For our members in the Nigerian Coalition on Youth Peace and Security, most of us were now very familiar with digital technologies before the COVID-19 pandemic, so we're now certain how to use Zoom for conferences and webinars. So my organization led a session on training on digital peace building tools, and then just so that we can see how we can use digital space to still ensure that our work still continues even in the face of the massive COVID-19 disruptions. So initiatives we took included countering fake news through the use of sensitization. One of our partner organizations created a website that was dedicated to debunking fake news facts around COVID-19, while my organization also decided to carry out local sensitization while adhering to safety protocols and social distancing, but also making an emphasis on translation of COVID-19 safety protocols into local languages so that people at the local communities can adhere to that and stay safe. Thank you so much. That was the experience. We're still having a very good experience so far, though, pivoting to digital peace building. I would like to ask a question directly to Congresswomen Susan Brooks and Grace Meng. With the new Congress beginning next month, do either of you have a message on YPS for the incoming members? And what related initiatives should the U.S. Congress be promoting in the future? Thank you. Congresswoman Brooks.
Thank you so very much. Well, as you've already learned, I will not be in the next Congress. I will be back in my home in Indiana, but I will be encouraging my fellow members still, because of the relationships I've built, to still get involved and to support Grace's bill. I think it is very important that that we educate, and one thing I would love to share with you, the young peace builders here, is make sure that whether it is the technology that you are using, the ideas that you have, always share them with other generations. Always make sure that the older generation understands what you are doing, how you are doing it. Bring us in. I am of an older generation than you all, and it's and I am so enlightened and so excited to see what you can do. But please make sure that you keep us informed and that you educate us, and so that we can be your champions. And I think that is what we will do. We have so many young people now in the United States House, and I would encourage my colleague Grace to reach out to all of those young people to join her on this bill. I think they are the future of our country and our future leaders. They're already leaders, but trying to bring a diverse group from all different parts of both our parties to join onto a bill like this will go a long way. And so I wish her all of the best of luck. And I know she is a strong leader and well respected. And so I look forward to this bill one day becoming law, not just in our country, but around the globe. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with Susan, and you know, we will continue to work on legislation like this. And I want to reiterate 2 points that she's made. One is the importance of meeting and talking to the people who your policies and legislation impact, to listen to them and to ask what they need. And the second about relationships, it's so important, and this can cross party lines, it can cross ideological ways of thinking that might not be exactly like yours, but like Susan said earlier, we have so much more in common than we have different from each other. So I urge new members, as they engage on critical foreign policy issues, to find ways to connect to the people, your policies impact to your constituents, and help translate what's being done nationally and internationally to your local constituents. This bill includes an advisory board of Americans to the Special Envoy for Youth, Peace, and Security. And this helps Americans to understand firsthand the importance of foreign policy and reinforces the interconnectedness of our world. And my last message is one of inclusivity. One of the cornerstones of my legislative work, we've tried to be about diversity and inclusion. We have learned that including more voices at the table, whether it's peace negotiations or business negotiations on corporate boards, ultimately fosters more sustainable final treaties. This must be the common denominator of our foreign policy. The more people, the better. The more voices, the better. The more experiences, the better. Together in Congress with the new incoming Biden-Harris administration, with the international community, and with all of you, we will help pass the Youth, Peace, and Security Act. We will set the stage for the leaders with us today and those watching around the world to bring us one step closer to peace. And we look forward to keeping our amazing Congresswoman Susan Brooks updated on our progress and hopefully getting it signed into law one day.
Thank you for this opportunity to honor my good friend and colleague, Emile Bruneau, who many of you will know personally or of his work. Emile died of brain cancer in the last 3 months, and it's a huge loss for us at Beyond Conflict and many of his colleagues around the world.
Inclusive conversation on YPS, and for taking time today to have a conversation with each other. It went by so quickly, and I know there's so much more to talk about, but we do truly appreciate all of you today in this conversation, and everyone who's watching as well, for wanting to be a part of such a really important movement that's going to really change the world. This piece of legislation is so important, and AFP, alongside our US YPS coalition and the Congresswomen and all of the youth peace builders, will continue to work on this in the new year. So you haven't finished hearing about it yet. Before I kick it over to AFP's Vice President Liz Hume, I want to quickly remind everyone that you can meet Peace Direct's awardees of the Peace Direct Peacebuilding Award at the Peace Direct virtual booth during the break. But now over to Liz for our in memoriam. Thank you all.
Good morning, everyone. This part of the conference is always bittersweet. One of the greatest things about working in this sector is that you meet the most amazing people. The hardest part is that sometimes we lose those amazing people. And so this session is dedicated to those just incredible peace builders that we lost this past year. I want to start off by presenting a short video of our dear colleague Emile Bruneau, who we lost this year. Beyond Conflict will be presenting the video.
Thank you for this opportunity to honor my good friend and colleague Emile Bruneau, who many of you will know personally or of his work. Emile died of brain cancer in the last 3 months, and it's a huge loss for us at Beyond Conflict and many of his colleagues around the world who work in science and in the field of peace building and conflict. Emile was one of those true pioneers, somebody who really brought incredible knowledge of science and also real world experience to the big questions of the human experience as it relates to issues of conflict and reconciliation. Emile was committed to real change, but based in real evidence, because in his experience in Northern Ireland, working with children, or in Sri Lanka at the time of the war, or in South Africa during the transition from apartheid, he saw what conflict meant and was in real terms. And he went into science to see if he could learn more to translate those into the real world challenges we face. And so I was lucky to have met Emile 10 years ago when we at Beyond Conflict began our own journey to understand what science can tell us. And I remember the first time I met Emile with his colleague Rebecca Sachs, he was pressing me and challenging me in a good way as to how do I know that our approach in Beyond Conflict worked. And I gave the usual response about evaluations and measurement. And he was asking questions like, but what are the psychological processes that may be coming online to advance change or stymie it? Or even more deeply, what are the neural mechanisms involved? And I had no clue how to answer that. But I knew at that moment this was the person I wanted to work with. And so really bootstrapping, getting money from MIT and others, we ended up with colleagues organizing conferences on neuroscience and social conflict, dehumanization, norms, narratives, and neurons, and how to build more inclusive communities. And many will say that those sort of pioneering conferences that brought together not only scientists, but practitioners and others to talk about the challenges we face, but where science can play a role and where science can learn from those in conflict. And so Emile, for the last several years, has been the lead scientist at Beyond Conflict. He had a program at the University of Pennsylvania. We work closely together, we built teams together, and it's a huge loss to us and to humanity, but we're going to continue the work. And I know many people here today are going to continue the work that Emile launched, and we're very grateful for this opportunity.
So thank you. I first met Emile in 2015 when he spoke at our conference, and I highly recommend people going to YouTube. It's still there. If you look at the 2015 AFP conference, Emile Bruneau, you'll see an incredible video where he talks about these issues and how to practically apply them to peace building. I watch the video about once every year. So thank you for that from our colleagues at Beyond Conflict. The next video is dedicated to Rick Love from Peace Catalyst. Rick, his name says it all. love is, if you met Rick, you loved him. And in one of our last conversations shortly before he died, he was already thinking through how we needed to work on polarization in the US and make sure religious communities in the US were not contributing to polarization and could be working towards depolarization. So please watch this video talking about Rick Love.
I'm Martin Brooks, Interim President of Peace Catalyst International. On December 29th, 2019, the President and Founder of Peace Catalyst, Dr. Rick Love, passed away. He was a special man, a wonderful husband, a father, and a grandfather. Rick was a unique evangelical scholar and peacemaker who took the teachings and example of Jesus very seriously. He modeled authentic relationships and a genuine love for others. Through his teachings and writings, his conferences, and the establishment of Peace Catalyst, he challenged evangelical Christians to pursue peace as a faithful way of honoring Jesus. For Christians and Muslims alike, Rick was a mentor and a friend and an ally.
As I was just beginning the journey, reimagining the work of the church to be peace-building, to work toward the shalom of God, I met Rick Love, who was a mentor to me and all of a sudden provided this whole new community, articulated this theology, and lived out this practice of peace-building in a way that I was just trying to grapple with and think through. He was a mentor and a friend, a visionary, a sage.
Not only Rick Love was a faithful Christian, because of that faithful commitment to his own faith tradition, his understanding of Christianity, that discipleship to Christ, because of that Christian commitment, he was incredibly generous towards people of other faiths, of no faith.
Rick Love embodied empathy, understanding, respect, and acceptance, which I saw firsthand when I first met him almost 3 years ago. His love for God allowed him to see everyone as an individual who has the right to be loved.
The legacy of Rick's work is equipping us with those tools to wage peace in our families, in our communities, in our boardrooms, in our office corridors, and in the sphere of international conflict. For Rick, Jesus is present in each of those spheres and domains, and his teaching and his writing continues to teach us and illumine us to this day.
We're here to celebrate his life. There's still beautiful things he left behind. That to live for a long time. I was sharing with his daughter, he's like a star. That the light is still coming, but the star no longer there.
We will miss him. It's our moral responsibility to do everything we can to lift up his legacy and continue to work on his behalf.
After 9/11, Rick increasingly became concerned about the deteriorating narratives and unjust treatment of Muslims in the United States and globally. Rick dedicated the last 10 years of his life to peace building, courageously crossing social and political and ideological divides and challenging others to do the same. He did this because of his Jesus-centered approach to all of life. Rick was often heard quoting Hebrews 10:24. Consider how you may spur one another on toward love and good works. To honor Rick's legacy and spur others on toward love and good works, Peace Catalyst International is establishing the Rick Love Peace Award to be presented at PeaceCon 2021. This award will honor those who creatively cross divides to build peace, exhibiting the same character and courage displayed by Rick. Procedures for nominations will be announced in the coming months on the Peace Catalyst website and through Alliance for Peacebuilding. We look forward to hearing your nominations for the first Rick Love Peace Award. And for now, we're grateful to you and to the Alliance for Peacebuilders for this opportunity to remember and honor our founder, Rick Love.
Thank Thank you so much for that video showing how incredible Rick Love is or was, and how much his work was so critical to our field. And also moving forward to be able to make sure that the new award, the Memorial Award for Rick Love, we can present it next year at PeaceCon. So thank you so much for that. Next slide. We want to remember Tuija Talviti. She was a determined and dedicated peace builder, impassioned by equality issues, interdisciplinary collaboration, and the innovations generated by them. She served as crisis management initiatives executive director for 10 years and transformed CMI from a small organization to one of the most respected conflict resolution organizations in the world. Next slide. Rabiu Alwal was a youth leader with unwavering passion for peace building. He was engaged in an advocacy for peace program with 250 ethnically and religious diverse youth aimed at preventing violent movements in northern Nigeria. He also implemented a community initiative with 50 youth in his community. He was most recently involved in the #SecureNorth movement, and unfortunately he was shot by an unknown gunman while trying to rescue others, and he tragically passed away on November 20th, 2020. His journey was cut short, but his legacy lives on forever. Next slide, please. Alwi Abdoulaye, he was a builder of bridges, not walls. We remember him as just a man, unifying others through dialogue, an astute mediator. Ali was, on numerous occasions, he facilitated productive dialogues between Catholic Relief Services and its collaborators, and contributed to de-escalating tense situations. He was a symbol of peace, humanity, and forgiveness, a man who knew how to transform hatred into love. As a country representative, he led a team as one family, independent, cohesive, and effective, with determination, fairness, wisdom, and above all, compassion. He left us, but he remains engraved in the memory of all of us, and his legacy will be the foundation of unity, a closing of ranks to be even more effective. Next slide, please. Sister Ardeth Platt, following a career as an educator, a city councilwoman, and mayor, she joined the Catholic activist community of Jonah House in Baltimore, Maryland. She participated in numerous plowshares and other nuclear abolition actions, spending more than 6 years in prison. She was the subject of a documentary film, as well as articles in the national and international press. She was an active member of the Nobel Prize-winning international campaign to abolish nuclear weapons, advocating for the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons. Until her last breath, she remained a powerful proponent of environmental justice and nuclear abolition. Next slide, please. Solomon Moyundu. He was popular known as Solo 7. He used art as a tool for social change. He painted messages of peace during the post-election violence in Kenya in the year 2007 that left over 1,000 people dead and thousands displaced. He estimated that he painted his art in over 4,000 locations. Recounting to women what led him to write the peace messages, Solomon said, "I have learned that art speaks, and I resolved to use the only means within my reach, a brush and a paint." He sadly passed away in July 2020. Next slide, please. Tuwanda Chandiwana. He was a young peace builder from Zimbabwe, and he worked in Mindanao in the Philippines as a global mission fellow of the General Board of Global Ministries of the United Methodist Church. In 2018, he was picked up by immigration agents He was charged with overstaying his visa and was found to be on a government watch list for suspected subversives. He had taken part in an international team investigating allegations of human rights violations in Mindanao. He died December 13th, 2019 from leukemia. His treatment was complicated by a prolonged strike of doctors in Zimbabwe. Next slide, please. Abdil Kude. He was a facilitator and administrative officer at Generations for Peace Nigeria. He trained in 2012. He supported the training of over 100 other peace builders and the implementation of advocacy, empowerment, and sport for peace programs. He was passionate about seeing sustainable peace in Northwest Nigeria and throughout the region. Sadly, he passed away in May 2020, but lived a life from inspiring young people. He was a natural advocate, team player, and lived by the values of Generation for Peace. He will be forever in our memories. So we dedicate this session and this day of PeaceCon to the incredible lives that we've lost. We also honor the lives of the nearly 1.5 million people who have died due to COVID-19 this year. Next slide. We remember the countless lives that were lost due to rising global violence as well, also here in the United States. Next slide. And we remember the countless people that have died due to injustice this year. We remember George Floyd and all the countless victims of police brutality in the US and around the world. Hashtag say their names. So on behalf of the Alliance for Peacebuilding, this is a terrible loss for our peacebuilding community, but they are forever in our hearts, and their legacy will live on in the incredible work that I know that people are inspired to build peace, reduce violence globally. Thank you.